Is it doing it? Okay, we are recording Dads
Beauty.
in Real Life, episode 3. It could be 3 or 2 or 1, but this is the third time we've recorded our conversations. So, good afternoon. It is afternoon, Travis. How we doing?
I am doing so much better than the last time we recorded. Last time it was pouring rain, just like my nose was pouring snot. And now it's beautiful, and so is my brain. So I
That's
hope we
awesome.
see a big difference in the speech. Just sorry in advance for all of those of you who were listening to that one on completionism when I was dead to the world.
Completely dead to the world. Yeah. But the nice thing about being sick is you naturally will talk slower, right? Whenever a lot of people get into public speaking, it's way too fast. So, at least there was the benefit of that. Nice, cool, calm, collected.
That's fair. That's fair. Now, I want to kick things off here, but
Yes.
Rob, I first want to just ask: do you trust me? Do you trust me?
Of
Like
course. Of
I'm
course I trust you.
Aladdin, you're coming onto my rug right now.
Hey
Let's
man, my
fly.
shoes are off. You see? That's
Let's
how much I
let's
trust you. My shoes are off.
shoot. Let's fly. Okay, so this one's an easy one. Okay, I already kind of teed this up for you before,
Oh,
but
and by the way, this was not set up. Like I don't know the questions Travis is about to ask me. And I told him
yeah,
like one of my complaints last week was I almost over prepared, whereas our conversations are usually amazing without the over preparedness. So I have no idea what he's gonna ask me. So yes, go back. Sorry to interrupt. I do trust you. Go.
beauty. So, I'm a recreation and leisure studies major, so I like to think of the fun things. We got to add a little bit of spice here and there, and
Yeah.
just to warm us up as we riff today, I want to start by talking about coffee mugs. We both are
Ooh.
drinkers of coffee. I think many dads out there are drinkers of coffee.
Yes.
Therefore, tea, what have you. But we're talking
Hot
mugs,
liquids. Drinking of hot
okay?
liquids. Yes.
Hot liquids. Tell me about your ideal mug of
Oh,
choice.
that's
Why
that's
is it why
That's
is it
like
the way
picking
it
your
is?
favorite kid. I've got 3 kids, right? You're asking me to pick my favorite kid right now. So instead of picking my favorite kid, I will pick the kid in season. So what that means is like I like espresso. I like my clean double shot. If I need a little bit more liquid, Americano, maybe a cortado, right? So that's my play. That's my home field advantage right there. Now the cups with that are going to be really, really small. So I actually have a really small, probably like 4 or 5 ounce container that I just purely use. I'm a double espresso in the morning, 2 hours after I wake with no complaints. Like that's what, if you watched any of my stories, that's what Chloe's making. She's
Mm,
she's on it. She knows how to do it. Whereas moving on in the day, right? I usually have another coffee around 1 or 2, either as my pre-workout or if I'm going on a long focus thing, the caffeine actually helps me because I've had too much caffeine in my life and I've had not enough. So I kind of know what works well. At those times, it's either going to be some kind of cold brew. So at that point, the mug can be a little bit bigger because I will be putting ice in it, or I need volume, right? So it's
mm,
another bigger than normal mug, but it's probably still going to be either like a pour over if I'm making coffee for Mo and I at the same time. If it's just me, I'll just do the Americano. I'll do the 2 espressos, fill up the difference with hot water. So that's the kind of 1-2. Now I have been getting into latte art for Mo, mainly for her because I don't drink a lot of cream in my coffee. And so
mm.
there's another mug, right? That's another one. I need a little bit wider of a mouth, a
Yep.
little bit. The depth's not as much, but it allows me to get a long design in versus like up. Too late. I've got a dollop. Like that's what you get. So it's seasonal, but I would say I've got all 3. I think it's kind of like what we had a conversation before, right? The right tool for the job makes the job that much more efficient and easier. And I think coffee is the same. Now, I've been to plenty of coffee places. They're like, okay, cortado espresso. Do you mind if we put it in a bigger cup? Like that doesn't bother me, right? Because they're trying to do like the mini art, like
Yep.
on the micro stuff. But at home, I like having it in the small cup. Now I could get all scientific about more surface area cooling it down too fast versus smaller, but I just like the smaller one. So that's me. I've got 3, but it depends on what I'm doing. So how about you, Travis? I know you're a mug collector, aficionado. So what are we talking about?
Yeah, mugs are maybe a little bit of a problem for Deb and I because over the
We've had
years
to we've had to throw out a lot of mugs. I'll just say that.
yeah, you kind of just I feel like that's what we're getting good at. We're
Hmm.
cycling, recycling, where
Hmm.
some things go on to other people we know, some things just go in the trash. But and then more come in. So we've gotten a little better at controlling ourselves when we're at the store or we're somewhere and we're like, oh, look at that cool mug. Why do mugs look so good? I don't know. I can't help it.
And not only that,
But
they're really good at the one-off, right? It's not like you're buying 12 of them. You're just getting
yeah,
one, right? So
yeah,
that's the collector in me. That's the I got to get
that's
all
it.
the Hard Rock Cafe pins, right? That's the same thing.
Yep, yep. So I got my stash of like Starbucks cups from other countries I've been to.
Nice.
But those I don't really go to because okay, mug feel is a big thing for me. It's not so
Mm.
much about what's in the cup as much as
Hmm.
how the cup feels.
Gotcha.
So,
I like that.
um, I have come to find that I have an ideal mug, and it's funny because it's actually Deb's. It's covered in flowers and it's pink, but it is so perfect because um, I would show you on screen, but most people are probably listening to this, on their
Hmm.
drive to work or on their way home or
But you
whatever.
can
What
describe it
have
if
you.
you have it. You can
But
describe it for
I'm gonna
sure.
paint the picture for you in your mind, okay?
There you
So this cup, it's not too wide.
go. Hmm.
Like I can hold on to it. I have kind of smaller hands. I'm not afraid to admit that. I just kind of have a baby hand. So I can hold on to it and have my fingers go through the handle. Now the handle is
Nice.
just tall enough to where all four of my fingers fit
Ooh,
inside
okay.
of it.
I gotcha.
So sometimes I'm sitting there, I'm letting my hand get warmed by this cup that fits in my hand. It's got some dimples on it, so it's
Mm,
almost helps with the ergonomics. So like
gotcha.
my
Yep.
fingers have little places to go. It's just kind of like, ooh, this is fun. But other times I want to hold it by the handle, and all four of my fingers fit in there on that handle. But the handle itself is also thin enough that I can kind of have my pinky on the outside and hold it with three fingers as well.
Nice.
And that just, I mean, it's like the trifecta. I mean, it just like every hold works perfectly.
I
And
think you
it's
just described like the perfect baseball glove, right? Like literally, like it's broken in. You can wear it
I
different ways, right? It's perfect. That's awesome.
oh yeah. So that's pretty much what I would say for a mug. Now I have a ton, and I use kind of what's available. So it's almost like I get a treat every once in a while. Like, ooh,
Ooh,
there's
okay.
the good one. Or if I'm like, I want to tell my wife that I love her. It's like I made her coffee in that mug. Like,
And
hey,
that
I've
mug,
chosen not to use this, even though it's yours.
even though it's yours, I've
And here you
chosen
go, because I
it.
love you
You
so
you
much.
can take it back for this one cup, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
awesome.
Yep. So that's all I got to say about mugs. And I like what you have to say about it depends on what the drink is.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of logic in that, and um, just practicality. It's perfect. Now we have to talk about latte art some other time too, because we have the same espresso machine,
Oh yeah,
and
we
I
do.
can't do it. I can't do it. So
A lot of time spent on IG stories trying to copy for sure.
yes, yes. Now you asked me a question to transition into the depths of our riffing off of some dad experiences
Okay.
that we can dive into today, since people don't have the whole day, but
No.
maybe they do. Maybe they want to listen to us 24/7. I don't know.
Just yeah, we'll start a network at that time, like Anchorman. We'll do that.
That's it. That's gonna work great.
That's gonna be perfect.
I just realized, what am I doing? I don't have my
Oh,
ears in here. I don't.
your ears. It's okay if it's coming out clear. You're coming out clear to me.
Hey, if
So
I'm coming out clear, you know what? Everybody else, I'm just gonna keep it this way so it stays consistent for this episode.
there you go.
And I'm sorry to all those of you who are going to turn it up and turn it down. Rob will fix that actually, so
I'll
everything
do
will
the
sound the
best in
same.
post. You'll be
He's going to
fine.
do his post guru, just making it happen. So back to the topic at hand.
Yes.
Do you want to dive into this with kind of the question you posed to me earlier?
What question was that?
You you
That's,
threw it out there earlier, and you said, "Hey, let's talk about challenges."
oh
When it
yes.
comes to us as fathers out there, we got goals, we have
Hmm.
things that we want to accomplish. What have you? Doesn't matter exactly what it is,
Hmm.
but but it's a B word that I'm looking for. What are the
Behaviors or barriers?
barriers
Gotcha.
to entry. Not even barriers to entry, I guess. More like just what are the challenges? What are those things that stop you from getting to where you're going?
Following through. Yeah. So for me, in my experience, and I'll talk from my personal experience and from a couple of the guys and even some of the gals I've helped over the years. But for me, and I think we can, you resonate on this. I'm really good at like building the boat, right? Like I'm good at building the boat. I can make sure it's waterproof. I can set it into action, but then I'm on to my next boat. Right. And so if you look at my track record, and this goes as far back as like college doing projects, I was the gung ho leader of the small group. And then once it was like 80% there, I started to kind of like step back, let the reins go a little bit. And so that's been the challenge, period, in anything. If it's self care, if it's relationship work, if it's working on being a better parent, I'm really good at initiating, right? Like, hey, we should have family meetings like once a month. We did
Mm.
it good for 1 month, right? Like it's really good for the first month, right? Or you know what? I'm going to start exercising. You know, the girls are getting bigger. They want to do it. Well, okay, great. And then I let other things kind of get in the way. So I think for me personally, the biggest obstacle was follow through, right? And the way I would deter myself, right, from following through was the enormous amount of excuses that we all come up against, right? I don't have enough time. I don't have enough energy, especially as a parent, right? I don't have enough energy, stuff like that. Where am I going to put it? And so I really had to go back. And this is something we talked about privately about creating that vision, that year vision, right? If I can know where I want to be January of this year, what does my day look like? Who am I hanging out with? What are the smells, the touches, the sounds? And I can start to work backwards. What that helps me is actually it helps me focus, right? Because then I can do, okay, what is health really a pillar of mine? Yes. Is relationship? Yes. Okay, then I shouldn't be, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I'm really good at consuming information. And I
Mm.
told Mo
Yeah.
one of my goals this year is to stop consuming as much and to be more of an application, actually doing this stuff. So it's great that I love reading. It's great that I love consuming this information, but I think we get caught up with what's the next best thing? What's the next shiny toy? Oh, this would be really good for the dads. Oh, this versus like, how about we take the first thing we read in January and let's just do that, right? And
Mm.
that's the challenge for me over the years is like, is simplifying my life really beneficial? And I know that sounds kind of funny because we're all like, yeah, of course it is. But I like doing a lot of things, right? And that's partially the reasons why I'm good at starting a lot of things. But it wasn't until the last 4 years that I become more fruitful in my labor because it's more focused labor. And secondly, I've gotten the time back and the obstacles that used to be there just kind of disappear because a lot of the obstacles had to do with my time management, my awareness about like, what do I really want to do? Am I super excited about this? If I'm not super excited about it, the answer is no. Right. So being able to develop that awareness over the years has really helped out. And funny enough is with the coaching clients that I help, it's the same elements, right? Our storylines might be slightly different, but it's usually the same thing. So it's like, I'm having trouble being consistent. My routine is like a roller coaster. It starts good and then I can't do it. And it's one of the things that we're trying to build, right? And I really think kind of the secret sauce to it, and everyone's got their secret sauce. But I think I talked about it before. If you're new into any kind of growth, be it personal development, passion projects, right? Maybe you want to lose 10 pounds, anything that you've been a sabbatical for a little bit and kind of getting back on the horse, you're
Mhm.
all about consuming information, right? Big net. I want to catch all the fish. I want to learn all the tools, well, all the workouts. But then you get to a point in your life where it's like, that stuff, I already know how to Google that stuff. And it comes to a point where you actually need mentorship, right? You need accountability. You need a coach to help bridge the gap from, okay, I got all this free stuff. Like I know it, but I'm not doing it. So that's also been my struggle, right? I want to know, but actually I need someone to say stop, no, stop studying and start doing it. So that's kind of the common theme, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. That's why I hired coaches, right? It's because I want to be applying this year versus having a bookshelf full of books that I've read, but I can't teach you guys anything from those books because I haven't done anything, right? So I know that was
Oh,
long-winded, but that's how I've come across obstacles in the past, and that's how I'm addressing them now.
I love that. I think you painted that picture really clearly, and I can identify with that. Like we've talked about that. Um, but let me ask you this then. Um, out of all the people that you've coached over the years, how many of those people naturally had like a vision set forth? Maybe not naturally, but intentionally had something set up to say, I want to be here. This is what I want to achieve. And they were looking at that compared to the people that were kind of like, well, I just want to be better. He's holding up a big old zero. Because
Zero.
it's not, isn't that weird how against the flow of life that is to actually like have a vision, right? I mean, I don't want to get too far into the vision casting or like the vision talk just because I mean
But it's true.
that's like a
We could talk
12
about
part series.
it. Is,
That's a
but it's
12-part
true.
series, but it's a
It's
part of
true.
what we're talking about today.
Yeah. It's true. Like I've worked with, Fortune 500, Fortune probably 100 companies, executives, all the way down to the stay-at-home dad, right? And everything in between. And what you find out is a lot of the systems and tools I'm teaching are not new. I did not create anything that I teach. It's more of me
Mhm.
distilling a lot of things that I've tried into a system that I know works for me or my season in life as the solopreneur. You don't need to be an entrepreneur, but like you have a hobby that you would love to pursue, but there's no time to do it, right? You want to work on your relationship. You don't want to make the sacrifices that our parents made, right, for us. And so I think you start to learn through that passage and working with these people that, like, hey, we get management at work. If the traditional 9 to 5, right, you get regular feedback loops at work, right? You
Mhm.
get a way to ascend that ladder at work, but we don't get any of that at home. We don't sit down and be like, okay, let's write out our 3-year plan, right? Our business plan for the family. Like it's very, I've had one person say it, but it doesn't work very well. And another thing is awareness of the family. Like I couldn't sit down, and we've tried with Mo and be like, okay, we're going to treat this family like a business. Like that's a quick, like that's a fisticuffs situation, right? And so knowing that, hey, but I can still take principles and bring them up with my spouse, right? And to see how can we figure that out in our day. It doesn't need to be called time blocking. It's who's picking up the kids at this time, right? So you know what I mean. So the principles still are key. I'm just distributing them into a day-to-day routine, right? So we know the benefit of having someone that mentors us. We all have had it throughout our lives, right? Be it Boy Scouts or work. You've had someone to be like, hey, don't step there, step here. And yet at home, we're trying to figure it out. At most, you have a partner that's willing to work with you to figure it out, but still, that's a big obstacle, right? And so I think that's part of the yearning for me of doing the podcast and coaching is to be, I'm just 5 steps ahead of you. I'm just gonna say, watch out, ditch, right? Like that's basically the goal.
Yeah, and well, and your family has to be on the same page, right? It's easy to hear something to get excited about it and then throw it out there and be like, "This is what we're doing," and they're like, "What?" Depending
Yeah,
on the age
it's
of your kids, and
and the thing
um,
is plans change, right? Based on the season. So what works now may not work later at the next
yeah,
chapter or the next season of life. And if you have kids that are drastically different, like we have a 4-year-old and we have a 12-year-old, right? That's a different playbook. So you need to be malleable. And I think as someone who either freelances or if you've getting bit by the solopreneur bug or you have passion projects, you know that you need to be flexible, but that crosses over into parenting and relationships and knowing that, hey, if we don't have something set in stone right now, that's fine, but we should come up for air once in a while. And how are we doing? And we talked about this last time about completionism. Like we could be taking the wrong fork in the road, right? We could be taking the wrong path if we never get up and check in. So thankfully, in our household, we do have regular check-ins and it's not structured like a business minutes meeting and stuff like that. But it's like, and I mentioned today on a short live, is like, I'm dealing with some back pain now. And thankfully I've built enough trust with my spouse to be like, hey, today I'm like running at 10% max. And she is honest and transparent enough to be like, I can do the 90. I got it today. No, I'm good. Like I need you to go lay down. And so, and that's so powerful because growing up, I didn't see that relationship. And so for the longest time, I would just bear it, right? Like I'm not feeling the best, but you know what? Head of household or wearing the chops. I need to do what I need to do. But then I would get really sick. And without
mm,
warning or preparation on my spouse and kids, that was
yeah,
10 times worse.
oh
So
yeah,
being able to be transparent and being able to be vulnerable, be like, hey, I know I'm this figure or stereotype, but today I need some help, right? I'm not feeling so hot. So, but I think that's reps, right? And you and your spouse, it's like it's not year one, right? It takes time to develop that relationship.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I feel like um, I haven't heard until maybe recently, and maybe
Hmm.
this has been a thing for a long time, but um, just as we've gone through this last 13 years. Wait, yes, we have been married not for 13 years. We've known each other for that long. I was just talking to her about when we were dating. For the last 10 years of just married life.
But tack on the three. You knew you were going to marry her,
Yeah,
right? 13
yeah,
years. Right there.
I did. I did.
There you go.
So I we've just now started seeing, I guess, more people in our circles talking about having like a family kind of vision, or like
Hmm.
just like some things that like define us as
Hmm.
us,
Yeah.
and but then the root, and I think something that you are getting at, that you've talked about here when you talk about transparency, is the communication. Like,
Yes.
I think so. I think one of the biggest challenges, it seems like, w- uh, when we're trying to achieve whatever it is as a family, or as a dad, or as an
Hmm.
entrepreneur, or whatever, um, is maybe a lack of communication, or trying to figure out how to communicate with the people in our lives
Yeah.
to make that it almost, I mean, it's like a team thing. There's a book that I read a while ago talking about a family as a team.
Yeah.
So like, hey, we're all on the same team. How do we support each other? Like you mentioned, like, I'm sick. I can just grin and bear it, but that's actually going to be worse,
Hmm.
rather than actually just, uh, like, just naming it. Hey, this is what I have. What can we do? And
Yeah.
again, you're on the same team. You're not against each other. How do we
Exactly.
make
And
this happen?
I love that framework because I use that terminology with the kids all the time, especially when they feel, either based on their environment, what that's dictating to them, they feel like they did something wrong. And I keep reminding them that all our trip ups and mistakes are learning opportunities. And I tell them, like, we're on the same team. This is practice, right? Like, what happened here was practice, right? That's what we're doing. It's just practice. And as far as the communication, seeing how my spouse and I talk to each other, how we're calm in situations, that's also what they're seeing as the normal when it comes to conversations. And to see the transparency and vulnerability, like they know dad's out, right? Like, hey, I'm going to bring my homework up to the bedroom to do homework tonight versus us being in the office. Like my oldest already knows that. So I think communication is key, but also something that I struggled with for a while, and I've seen a lot of dads kind of struggle with this, is the the stance on communication that we might have seen growing up may not be the stance of communication that our season of life needs right now. And so the example I use growing up is like, you never talked about your feelings, how hard something is, right? Anything that's happening at work, you never talk about those
Hmm.
things because when you're at home, you're like the foundation, right? You're supposed to keep calm under pressure. And I understand that. But what I've seen through my own anecdotal testing with our own family is the more that I'm willing to say I'm not okay, that I need help, the more real I become to my
Mm.
kids. I'm not this idle Superman, never gets sick, never has a problem, never has a bad day, right? And then for my wife to realize, like, oh no, good. I was like, if we kept in this scenario, it's waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Like, it's
Oh
okay
yeah.
for you to ask for help. So I think for me, it was also my ability to communicate what I need as a dad,
Hmm.
as a partner, as a human being, versus like the hat that we all wear as soon as we become a dad, right? When we become a husband. And so that has been really pivotal in our relationship and the kids' relationship and just the day to day. Like I'm not on eggshells saying like I probably shouldn't bring this up, or maybe I shouldn't say that. Now the fact that everything's so fluid and it's almost normalized that we can have open and honest conversations, it takes the little, and I use this analogy I think in a post, it takes like a candle flame. It's much easier to put a candle flame out than a forest fire,
Hmm.
right?
Oh
And so
yeah.
that's what the communication has given us. So
Yes. Well, and it's such a valuable lesson. I've talked about this a number of times with friends. Um, but I feel like that's one of the best things that we can do as
mhm,
parents, is to let our children see how we fail, how we process failure, and how
mhm,
we overcome that, or do we
Hmm.
make mistakes and how we do
Hmm.
that, um, yeah, we're living in a new generation here, and I think it's great. Like, we have some new tools and we know what works, but that seems to be something, well, that is something that I want to carry with me, is go,
Hmm.
wow, you know what, I was totally wrong in
Yeah.
what I did there. Like, hey kid, let me tell you, here's how not to do it, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but here's what I'm going to try different. Like, for
Mhm.
them to see that example is going to speak
Oh,
so much more.
you are helping them shape tools that are healthy to deal with coping. Right? So if you think about like the
Mhm.
stereotypical movies we grew up, how did men cope? Alcohol, going out late, all that kind of stuff. Like that's how you dealt with stress, like stock market crash, like all that kind of stuff, right? But
Yeah.
that's not a healthy reaction to failure. That's not a healthy reaction to obstacles. So by working it through it with your partner, by being verbal about how you're feeling and the things that you came up short with, will not only show your kids that you're a real person, that wow, dad has bad days. Yeah, I have bad days, but you know what? I learned from the bad days to try to minimize the occurrence of these bad days. And I use language that is really, really simple for them to know that, okay, at the end of the day, you need to trust your gut feeling and you need to be quiet long enough to hear your gut feeling. Right. And so I think, yeah, like you said, how we communicate to one another, how we communicate to our spouses in public, in private, how we communicate to people that maybe are a couple steps ahead of us in the ladder of life, right? And then those who are coming up, I think I'm a really big believer how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so we try our best. Not only that, just as to minimize stress. The more masks you wear, the more storylines you have to remember, and the more likely you're going to mess up, right? And so I learned that a
Yeah.
long time ago. It's like, hey, this is what you get. Rob spelled backwards and forward is still Rob. So that's basically it. That's who you're gonna get.
I love it. I love it. So then, I'm just kind of thinking, we're
Yeah.
riffing, okay?
Yeah,
Processing
that's
this,
that's
Mike. Okay.
basically how this is going to be. I love this
Let's
format. So keep going.
let's just take a breath here
Hmm.
and think about this.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if you. I think. Well, if I know you well, I know that Rob is extremely good at breaking things down into bite-sized pieces that we can all handle and
Yes.
take moving forward. So, practically speaking, say there's a dad out there that's just, this communication thing is brand new, like,
Mm.
just not something that we've done, not something we were raised with.
Hmm.
um, what advice maybe would you give? What would be a good starting spot? Maybe a good little, like, practice for
Okay,
somebody who
I like
wants
this.
to communicate better. Maybe it's with their kids.
Okay,
Maybe it's with their spouse.
so
What would
here's
you
a
do?
good. I've got it for you. I've got the practice. So
I love
if you are uncomfortable with communication, as I was, but you know that it's going to be a pillar of kind of the foundation that you're going to build your life on, right? With your spouse, your kids, friends, stuff like that. A practice that I have given to others and a practice I've done myself early on is I want you to journal, but not journal like thoughts of the day. I want you to write notes to your kids. I want you to write notes to your spouse that you are not ready to speak out in tongue or in words. If you're having a bad day, at the end of the day, write that out. Had a bad day today. I wasn't giving you the cold shoulder. I'm working on being a better me so that I can communicate. But for right now, this is what I'm doing. And then you just write it out. And then you actually give it to your partner. Same thing with the kids, right? It was a long day, couldn't make it to your little league game. And I feel terrible about it, but I don't know how to verbalize that yet. I'm going to write it down, right? And now I'm not going to write it down and maybe show my 4-year old, right? Because she may not be able to read it, but just the process of me being able to write down how I'm feeling and to be honest with what I'm feeling. When she gets to the age that she can read it, or maybe with enough practice, you're ready to talk about it, then you'll be at that point where you're just developing a better communication with them. So I like that tactic of just writing it down and put it in like in a little box for your spouse to read during the day, or when she goes off to work, right? You can put it in the purse. Like, this is where I was at last night. And I'm not quite ready to talk yet, but I will be. And then this is part of the process.
it. Gold. Gold. I love it. I love it. Okay. Okay. Now you just reminded me of something that I heard a while back at a like a men's retreat that
Hmm.
was I thought I'm taking this, and I haven't personally really gotten to run with it yet because
Hmm.
my daughters are 2 years old and less, and they can't read or any of that good stuff. But this I think she was a marriage and family therapist or something along those lines, and she had done a ton of studies on um, just raising girls,
Hmm.
and she was talking to all the dads
Hmm.
and basically said, "Hey, look, like if there's something you can do, here's something." And while you were talking about that, it just poof reminded me
Hmm.
of this. Of she gave every guy a whiteboard marker,
Hmm.
and she said it doesn't have to be anything other than a sentence if you want, but leave a little note for her on the mirror, like in the
Hmm.
bathroom. You know, um,
I'll
just
I'll do it with
it's
little
like
post-its in their lunchbox.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I do it in their lunch because I have older girls that go to school, so
Uh
I'll
huh.
write a little post-it note in their lunchbox for them.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so I'm just like that's set in my mind. I'm definitely doing that. Just so that I can be sure like, I want my daughters to know that they are loved unconditionally no
I
matter
got it.
what.
I got
Boom.
another fun thing, and
Yeah.
and for anyone's listening to this or watching this later, all the tools and tactics I bring up, it's just stuff that I've used, I've tried, I've read about, and it's totally up to you if you want to do them. Don't feel like, okay, Travis and Rob talked about 18 things today. Man, I'm not the best dad if I don't do 18 things, right? Like that's
Mm,
not the point of place. But these are just some fun ways. Think of it as perspective, right? Just changing your perspective on some stuff. Try it if you will. So one of the things I heard about years back, and I do it. I'm not the best at it, but I'm working on it this year. Is I created email accounts for all my kids, right? So it's first off, I wanted to capture their name so that there wasn't another one. But what I do is once a month, I'd like to do it more often, but once a month, I write an email to that kid of that age of that year. So by the time they get to 18, 19, I give them the email address. I give them full access to it. And the only emails they have on there is 12 a year from dad. Hey, this was a hard month. This is what we're doing. I can't believe you grew 2 inches. Right. And so when
yeah.
they get to the age, they gonna really understand it. And like you said, it doesn't need to be long. It could be sometimes it's literally like a paragraph. Like, hey kiddo,
Yes.
hope you're doing well. Right. Yeah. And then just do that. So it's an email, it's an online journal. Nobody gets to see it. And then you just share it with your kids later.
That is epic. I mean, just like the most epic of time capsules right there.
Yeah.
I heard about this a while back, and I keep thinking, this is what I do with saving money and
Yeah.
investing. This is what I do with a lot of things. We use this
Hmm.
excuse. So if anybody's out there listening, like, man, Rob and Travis are talking about all these things, and I haven't thought about any of them or whatever, and you're like, ah, I don't know. I am guilty of this. I have thought like, "Oh, I should do that. That's great." And then I think of like a million excuses like, I don't know, like am I going to actually do it? Am I going to, like, oh, it's got to be clean, like this perfectionist in me of like I'm going to do it
Oh,
once, once a
we'll
month.
talk about perfectionism another
Oh
day, but
boy.
that's yeah, that's a big
That's
one.
another thing, but man, you've just reminded me, and I should get those emails dialed,
Mhm.
just to have it. I love that. So
It's
you do
it's
that
something
once a month,
simple and
huh?
free. Yeah, it's free, right? Just start a Gmail
Yeah.
account. It's like it's not something
Yeah.
you're doing. And since my goal this year is to write more, it kind of tacks onto that. So once a month, it might be more. Some months might be less. Other months, but yeah. Imagine the time capsule of nuggets as far as like parenting tips for your kids, right? First job interview tips, right? Anything,
Yeah.
anything that's top of mind. I think that would be better than any book you could ever give them or gift you could ever give them is
Oh
actually
yeah.
life experiences, right? But talking from a point of view of you going through it, they give insight and hopefully bring some connection on some experiences that they had that they may not have understood. Now they have a reference point to it.
Yeah. Like man, what I wouldn't pay to
Oh
to
yeah.
get like an email address like that from my growing up. I don't hold that against my parents at
No,
all.
no, no.
Like that's not
Just fun things
that's not
that
what I
we can
want
do. No,
anybody
this
to
is
hear. But
yeah,
like,
this is not to
wow,
beat up our parents talk. No, this
no,
is like, hey, what are some cool things that are low hanging fruit, right? I'm all about keeping it easy because that's how we keep consistent. But that
yep.
email journal, it's simple. It's super easy. Doesn't take buying anything or literally more than a couple minutes of your time. And then you choose the frequency. I do it once a month. You can give yourself 5 minutes once a month to write something top of mind, maybe a review of that month, maybe a review of your parenting, maybe something you're going through, just to give your kids the ability to have an insight, right? Because they see you as this hero, right? They see you as this amazing person, which you guys are. Everyone is, but it would be nice to show them that, hey, there is also struggle, right? There's also days where you're not feeling the best. And I think that gives them a stronger coat of armor going into this world, knowing that they don't need to be perfect as what they think we are. And not only that, sharing tools and insight. I mean, they got a playbook that they can build on right there. So
You can't prepare the road for the kids, but you can prepare your kids for the road.
yes, yes, sir.
So I that conversation went in a like completely different way than I thought, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna save the one of the thoughts I had was talking about, you said 5 minutes a month. Like
Mhm.
everybody has time for that, right? And we
Yeah.
always make up the excuse of like, I just don't have the time. Well, it's because we didn't necessarily set up the time. And that I think we should save for another episode.
Ooh, yes.
And
Next week's we'll talk about time, and that's actually something that I'm working on with Travis. Is actually a workshop around kind of the same idea. So
mm,
stay tuned for that. I'd love to share how I manage time, right? How we manage time, so that we can find time back because all of us only have 24 hours in a day. But if you start building some systems in place and building your awareness more than anything, like you'll be like, wow, I didn't know I have an extra 3 hours a day. I could be doing a lot more stuff.
I'm excited for that workshop. So we'll have a date out
Yes,
in the future here.
coming
And it'll be
shortly. But
awesome.
any closing thoughts? Any closing thoughts, tips, aha moments, things that you've worked on recently? Any nuggets that you want to part with before closing up?
Man, I mean, I think we had so many nuggets in there,
Mhm.
that I would have, if I was listening to this, I would have just like scribbled down or noted. Um, I feel like I'm just like holding like a whole stash of nuggets.
So I'll give one then. I got one.
I
Uh,
love
it ha-
it.
it has to do with coffee, so it has nothing
Send
to
us
do with
home.
the top. So when you're making latte, or let's say you're making coffee, right? One of the love languages that we have is gifting. So making coffee every day for Mo is part of that love language. So one of the things I realized early on was it's kind of like a chef. A good chef tastes the food. I would never taste her coffee in the beginning, so I would make the espresso, pour everything, and then I kind of see her face, and I'm like, and then I grab it, and it's cold. So one of the things I do is we have like a hot water dispenser because we love tea and yerba mate and stuff like that. So I will pour a full cup of hot water in the mug as I'm setting up, as I'm doing everything, as it's grinding, so that when I pour or draw the espresso out, that's when I dump the water. So the mug is hot, right? It's kind of like having a pan that's hot before you want to sear anything. Same idea with
Uh,
coffee. So if you've noticed that you're a big latte or milk drinker and it keeps getting cold, you got to warm the cup. Warm the cup.
Ooh, that's a good one. My wife reminds me of that because I do. We are cut from the same cloth, Rob.
Yeah.
I'm making the latte in the morning for her too, and every once in a while, she's like, "That was really cold, pretty quick." Like, not she's not
No,
complaining. She's just
yeah,
like,
I'm not
and
saying that you
I'm
did
like,
something
"Oh yeah,
wrong.
I didn't, I didn't warm that mug.
I didn't
You're
prep the
totally
mug.
right."
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a great nugget to walk away with.
Okay. So give that a try this week. Travis, thanks for your time, sir. Appreciate you. Time to go back to dad life. I'm going to do the same. It's just about pickup hour. So
A
with that,
pleasure as
guys,
always.
as always, we got to think of like a outro someday, some kind of cool catchphrase or something. But until
Yeah.
then,
Until next week, we
exactly.
salute you.
That's when we do
Cheers.
like the zoom in, right? Dun, dun, dun. Okay.
Yes.